It's finally here, guys. The long-awaited, hyped-up game, Cyberpunk. The one that we've been waiting for years for. Cyberpunk Red. You know, the sequel to Cyberpunk 2020, right? Oh, yeah, this game's pretty fun too. Okay, I know you came for Cyberpunk 2077, and all joking aside, we're here to talk about that. Yet I want to come at it from the angle of someone who likes the tabletop RPG and not a video game critic. So this review will be slightly different than the other big name reviewers because it's coming from a longtime Cyberpunk fan. Is the hype real? Is this a game that will satisfy video gamers and those who play Cyberpunk Red or Cyberpunk 2020? The answer is yes, but with a major asterisk. Movies like Blade Runner, The Matrix, Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and Ready Player One do a decent job of visualizing what Cyberpunk can be, but Cyberpunk 2077 hits the nail on the head for Night City. Oh, Night City. A city filled with crime and gang violence. A city mismanaged that's dirty, corrupt, and burning both ends of the candle from a venal government and crooked, powerful corporations at the top, and bloody violent gang wars at the bottom. As someone who has lived in mismanaged cities, Cyberpunk 2077 feels a lot like it should. It feels like a living, breathing world, one where people want to escape using brain dance technology, drugs, and alcohol to escape. A city where death feels more like the way of life than actual living does. It's hard to get that across in a tabletop game, but 2077 gets it just about right. The weirdos on the streets, people walking at crosswalks when they're not supposed to, and potholes that ruin your ride. Traffic jams and active crime scenes, as well as unfriendly natives, give me the feel of my own city I live in. CD Projekt Red made Night City feel like I always imagined while reading and playing the tabletop RPG. So we have this big open city that feels real, but how does the game play? To be honest, it plays pretty well for a first-person RPG. It feels like a combo of Fallout, Borderlands, Destiny, and Grand Theft Auto rolled into one package. But what does this mean for you as a player? It means that there's a lot to do, both related to quests and to leisure. Want to get drunk and feel the effects of a straight tequila shot? Hit the bar and watch your vision get distorted. Hit the nightlife and have some virtual fun with a brain dance, or buy some cheap food from a vending machine and watch TV. No matter where you go, Night City will always have something for you to do. Want some action? Take on the many side quests given to you by the NCPD to clear up gang activity with deadly force authorized, or take a gig from a fixer who needs your help to solve a murder mystery. Some missions you can do quietly and a bit of stealth, but honestly, if you played the tabletop game, you know that stealth is for the weak. Style before substance, Choombas. So how does one get these style points? Well, I say play the game more like Doom. Pop a med and get ready to run around like a crazy person full of drugs and blowing people's heads off. Those of you who play the RPG will agree that that's how you're supposed to play Cyberpunk, as it makes you harder to hit, and to be frank, charging at your enemies with guns blazing is just cool. This is where one of my asterisks comes into mind. If you're playing the video game as a video game player, you may try to take the stealth route and be fine with it. If you're playing as a player of the tabletop game, you may feel limited. Yes, you heard me right. The real-time, first-person combat may feel less cyberpunk than the tabletop game. Unlike Baldur's Gate 3, where you go into a turn-based mode and get to use all of your helpful skills, Cyberpunk 2077 feels like I'm being cheated out of my style points. Cyberpunk 2020 and Red allows for crazy dual-wielding dolphin dives. It allows for trying to free-run a wall while shooting your shotgun, blowing booster gang members' heads off. In Cyberpunk 2077, I feel that I have less options than my tabletop character does, and all I can really do is run around on a 2D plane with some jumping. I really miss the sliding and cartwheels and John Woo moves that the tabletop game allows for and insists you do to stay alive. Another note about gun combat, and I believe this is important as gun combat is such a huge part of the game, it feels floaty and is hard to describe. I get stuck on geometry, and I also feel like I can't connect my shots. I aim down sights and get no hits even if I hit them square in the chest. My brother who plays on console has the same problem, and moving the mouse around to track the target feels more like a chore in some instances, where if I either move too fast or too slow, it has gotten me into lots of trouble. My brother and some friends report this happens on consoles too, both last gen and the current new gen. A huge difference between the tabletop RPG and how 2077 plays is that I feel more like a one-man army, someone who can do everything. The reason why you play with a group of 3 to 7 players in the tabletop is to have all of your bases covered. A netrunner to hack, a nomad to help with the driving and some survival skills, the tech to help boost vehicles and repair things on the fly, rocker boys for the charm, and solos to kick ass and take names. In 2077, I'm kind of playing all of them. I get it's a video game and it's nice to have a skill tree and branch out, but it takes away from the brutal danger that you can get into with the tabletop. In 2077, I have died, but I feel sometimes more like the Master Chief from Halo and not an actual human with a little bit of cybernetic enhancements. I'm not a super soldier, but I feel like one sometimes in the game. Playing on hard makes it more difficult, yet I still feel like I'm losing the importance of a team when I can just hack, fix things, and do medicine all on my own. Speaking of your character, V, you can fully customize him or her to your physical standards, yes, including genitalia, but unlike Cyberpunk Red or Cyberpunk 2020, you don't have a life path to choose from, nor can you choose from the 10 roles in the Cyberpunk rulebook. You have Nomad, Street Kid, and Corpo, and you get some attribute points for your 5, yes, that's 5 stats. Body, Reflex, Tech, Intelligence, and Cool. So that means Luck, Dex, Empathy, Will, and Move are sort of rolled up into the perk points you can grab for yourself, but they don't seem as big of a factor as they do on the tabletop. Empathy is basically null because the game has slots for your tech. Yep, just like the tabletop game, you can get tech and help you become more badass, but there really isn't a cyber psychosis for you to worry about. As far as I'm aware, you can't put too much tech on you to lose your humanity. You're limited by slots on your body, similar to the other RPGs like Skyrim and Destiny, so that risk to reward that you experience in Red or 2020 is all but nullified by the developers, and I'd love to see the ability to experience cyber psychosis. The game does do a few things that I like more so than Red or 2020. Hacking is a quick minigame and doesn't get boring. Vehicle combat feels exciting even though the cars drive like they're on an oil slick, and using your quick hacking abilities to distract guards so you can sneak past them, or as I do, shoot them in the back of the head, feels better than the game master having to slow down the flow to allow one player to do their minigame while everybody else twiddles their thumbs. 2077 enforces the idea that corps are military forces to contend with, and you don't want to get on their bad side, or the police's bad side, especially the SWAT team. The side quests are fun and allow for more than just blowing street gangs' heads off and helping the police secure an area, and I'm going to use some of these gigs as a template for my own home games with Red. I understand that this isn't a Baldur's Gate 3 situation. This was never supposed to be a one-to-one correlation between Cyberpunk Red and Cyberpunk 2077 like BG3 and 5th edition D&D is. Yet there are still parts missing from 2077 that I love in the tabletop. Mike Pondsmith addresses in the Cyberpunk Red core rulebook just how important the story arcs are. The 2020 story arc, the Red arc, and the 2077 arc. And 2077 has huge fan service, answering some questions from the 2020 Corpo Handbook published in 1991, left up to interpretation. So even though 2077 guts out some of the fundamental gameplay I love in my Cyberpunk games, it makes up for a lot in the lore it builds and helps tie the narrative together from all 3 games. Is Cyberpunk 2077 a good game? Well, as a video game, it does help get my blood pumping and my adrenaline flowing. It's a fun, bombastic time as it stands, and on its own, it's pretty fun. Yet, is it a good game for somebody who likes the tabletop games like Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk Red? Well, the answer to that is yes, but again with an asterisk. We finally get a fleshed out world of Cyberpunk in an interactive video game. It's such a fun game with awesome quests, visuals, and features that will get any Cyberpunk fan excited. But the asterisk is knowing that you're no longer part of a team, you're more of a one-man army, and the brutality of the tabletop RPG doesn't feel as present. You won't have to rely on certain roles to get things done, as you can mostly take care of them yourself. Your character's life path doesn't allow for the customization you get in the Red Core rulebook or the 2020 rulebook, and your skill tree partially makes up for the stats that 2077 leaves behind. Cyberpunk 2077 is a fun game for a lot of reasons, but makes me sad as well. Although it was never advertised to be the same as the tabletop games, I still feel that there could be more done. That being said, I am having a blast, and when multiplayer patch drops, hopefully some of my woes will melt away. Remember, everyone in Night City dies. Might as well look cool doing it. So that's Cyberpunk 2077. The game's fun, but it definitely doesn't make up for the tabletop RPG that I love. So, if you guys like the video and you want to see more videos on Cyberpunk, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to learn more about other tabletop RPGs, we talk about those as well. I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to be safe and to game on.